Hey everyone, happy Wednesday, hump day, and welcome to another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So today, if you saw the thumbnail and you see me pointing the camera at this car right now, you know that we went ahead and started in on this one. Kind of at the stage with the barn door right now where we got to get some more seals for the brakes. If you watch the channel, you know I mentioned yesterday we're having some problems. I need to get a new wheel cylinder for the back. The new one that we put on, we got a defective one somehow and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that one, we'll probably get back on that on Monday. I'll try and get the parts I need before then. And then when Rafa comes in Monday, we'll probably go ahead and bleed the brakes and stuff like that, like we had planned to the other day, but that kind of went a little sideways with some leaks, but you know, nothing we can't take care of. So anyway, that being the case, Rafa said, hey, why don't I start on this Ghia today? So he did just that, and he started pretty much stripping the car to get it ready for paint and body. Well, metal, lots of metal and paint and body, but yeah, he went ahead and pretty much gutted the whole front here. Left a little stub of the wiring, of course, for us to pull the new wiring harness when we get to that stage. But yeah, he pretty much took it all apart, took all the front lights out, took the grills out, took the hood mechanism out, except for this piece right here. You know, gas filler, stuff like that. So yeah, I pretty much worked on the front of the car. Bumper, if I didn't mention that already. I don't think too many bolts broke so far. I think maybe just a couple, which, considering the level of rust on this car, is probably kind of amazing that every bolt didn't break from being rusted. But anyway, so far so good, only a couple. And then yeah, kind of in parallel with that, so Jacob came in today and he at the same time worked mainly on the inside of the car, and he went ahead, and it looks kind of like a mess now, but this stuff is just laying in here. But yeah, he went ahead and took out the seats, which are over there. And he took out the carpet, the door panels. He pulled out the windows and window regulators from the doors, pulled out the windshield and the rear window. So yeah, between those two guys, they just really went to town stripping this thing. Of course, we haven't touched anything back here yet, engine and transmission. Those will come soon enough, I suppose. But yeah, so we went ahead and kicked this baby off. I think what we might do with our paint and body guy is, since this car and the tennis ball, as we call it, that yellow, bright yellow green Beetle, came in about the same time, we'll probably try and do those cars in parallel and maybe do like have him work like a solid week on one car and then a week on the other car. And, you know, not necessarily exactly like that, but kind of switch back and forth. You know, and then if one car is waiting on, say, some donor metal, he can focus on the other one, etc. This car is going to need a lot of donor metal. It's really a shame because this is a California car, but it just sat unprotected in the weather, pretty much out in the sun for a long time. And I think it seems like it had, you know, water probably sitting on it and, you know, in the seals and stuff like that. And it just ate this poor thing up. So metalwork wise, we have got our work cut out for us on this car. This is probably, I would say, the single worst area on the car. This whole edge here is pretty much just separated the fender from the fender well, or inner fender, whatever you want to call it there. So yeah, this is gonna take some work. Lots of metal work. So yeah, stay tuned. It should be kind of interesting to watch the process here and see metal getting sliced and diced and replaced, and eventually this thing will look as good, if not better, than new. Kind of hard to believe looking at it right now, isn't it? But yeah, that's what we do. We're not afraid of some rust. We welcome the challenge. So yeah, those guys, Rafa and Jacob, this pretty much was their day. So yeah, glad to kick off this project. So me, I continued working on, not surprisingly, the motor for the barn door, and you can see the short block is still not together. Ran into some little issues, for lack of a better word, which have been resolved, but you know, kind of added to the time that it of course took to get to where I am right now. And if you follow the channel, you know that I was waiting to put the motor together, or at least like, you know, do the mock-up and stuff like that, and getting ready to put the motor together, waiting on the cam gear. And I wanted to run straight cut cam gears in it because they're cool, and they reduce a little bit of parasitic power loss, because driving helical gears is more expensive power wise than driving straight cut gears, and they sound kind of cool. They make a little whining sound. If you've ever heard a Volkswagen engine kind of make a whine sound, almost like it's got a blower on it, that's the straight cut cam gears. Anyway, so Impy is not my favorite company right now. Those of you that are regulars on the channel know that part of the reason this car is back in has to do with our friends at Impy, one of which is this front end, which decided to lower itself one day. You can look back a couple episodes and you can see me explaining that. So yeah, back to the cam gear. So here's the cam gears. They look nice, and I went and picked them up today at AA. Those guys seem to be the only ones that have these in stock right now. Even Impy themselves is out, but AA Pistons had a stash, so drove up there and picked these up and installed the cam gear, or the crank gear on the crank, of course, and then put the cam on this gear, and then installed them in the case. And lo and behold, so on these, what you do is you measure the lash. So it's like how much, I'm kind of exaggerating it here, but how much like play you have between them like that. And it should be a little, but not much. I mean, the less the better to a point. There's a test where you actually like rotate the motor backwards, and you don't want to see the cam like lifting out of the case. That's kind of the test for it being too tight. The test for it being too loose, you're just kind of checking for lash, and it should be like not much. Anyway, I measured it on this after I put it together, and actually I'm not exaggerating that much. It was about what you see me doing here. I measured it, and it was 16 thousandths of an inch. That's a lot. This motor would have sounded very clanky sounding and would have made all kinds of noises when you let off the throttle, or so on and so forth. It's just way too much lash in here. Of course. So I had the straight cut gears out of my motor in the autocross car out, because that motor is apart due to some failed lifters. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But I decided to go ahead and try the CB Performance gears that I had in that car, because again, the motor's apart and the gears were out. So I installed the gear first on the cam, and all of a sudden, boom, the lash was down to a more acceptable range. It was like 4 or so, which is maybe a little bit on the loose side, but it's like, okay, I can live with that. And then I went ahead also and switched in the matching CB gear that goes on the crank, this one, and yeah, it was still like 4 or so. So it seems like the issue is on the Impy set that the cam gear is a little undersized, and that's what's giving that extra play. Because again, when I swapped this gear for the CB one, but still tried it out with the Impy crank gear, the lash was basically fine, and then it was actually exactly the same when I then swapped on the CB Performance one, so that it was the full set from that manufacturer. So I guess I'll be calling AA and see if they take returns. I mean, this, I would say, is a pretty clearly defective part, just way undersized, or the teeth are just, I don't know. Anyway, way too much slop. So hopefully they'll take it back. It was like $105 or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'd like to get my money back. This is not usable. I would not put that in any motor. So that slowed me down a lot, because I had these gears on and off this crank a bunch of times trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and swapping different combinations and stuff like that. And you know that these, to put these gears on, you pretty much have to heat them up with like a propane torch. And then while they're still really hot, you take the gear with like a welding glove and you drop it on. And then as it cools, it basically like shrink fits on the shaft. So you got to do that on both the cam drive gear and the distributor drive gear here. Got to heat those both. Anyway, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to assemble one of these. And so I had this together and apart many times trying to figure out this cam gear situation. The other thing that I didn't mention was another mistake, which I could have lived with on the Impy gear, is that you see these two marks here. These marks are, when you assemble it, what tells you how to line things up so that your cam is timed properly. So see two nice big fat divots here, and when you assemble things, the one on the cam goes between those two, and that's how you know that your cam and your crank are timed correctly with each other. Well, see this big chamfer right here? That is made to go as like a relief for the radius that's on the crank that's about where my finger is underneath here. You can't see it, but yeah, there's like a big radius where this goes on and it transitions to this diameter where the bearing goes. Anyway, I wasn't really paying close attention. These always go facing out because then that's when they're there, and then you line them up with the cam gear. So I put them on facing out. Well, they're actually on the wrong side because you see how shallow this chamfer is here? This is the chamfer which should be facing out. The big fat one should be facing in, but then these marks are on the wrong side. And it's kind of like they realized what they did, and then, I don't know, by hand or something, put these two like very kind of hard to see wimpy marks on here. So yeah, it actually goes with this side facing out toward the front of the motor. And yeah, you can see them and you could time your cam. They are in the right place as far as that's concerned. But, you know, I was putting the thing together. Usually I just look for these marks, and I've got this thing that's probably like 400 degrees, and I drop it on there when it's still hot. And yeah, it didn't go on far enough because this chamfer is too shallow, and it basically ran into the radius on the crank, and then it spaced everything out too far this way. The reason I figured it out is because the little retainer clip wouldn't go on because everything was spaced out too far this way, maybe, you know, I don't know, like 20 thou or so. So that was another time that I had it together and apart. And so finally, when I got this thing oriented correctly and then mocked everything up with the cam, that's when I discovered the unacceptable amount of lash on there. So, Impy, come on, guys. You can do better. I know it. Anyway. But yeah, so this is pretty much ready to go together now. I did the final cleaning on the case halves, flushed them out super good with water and gas and everything else I could flush them out with. And I flushed out the crank before I assembled it, all the oil passages and stuff in there. That's all flushed out. The now CB Performance cam gear is on here, Loctited, tightened, all that stuff. So yeah, all the stuff is pretty much ready to go in. I need to go ahead and hang the rods on the crank. I'll probably do that first thing in the morning. And then the crank assembly will be ready to go in. And then I'm hoping that my guys that do my zinc plating are going to have my black zinc coated case hardware in, because then I can put this thing together for reals, the short block. So hopefully that will be my day tomorrow, is building at least the short block for this thing, and then hoping that Mr. Clyde Berg has my heads done maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, and I can look at getting the long block together. So pretty exciting stuff. So anyway, that's enough yammering for today, guys. Sorry that was kind of a long diatribe about this whole cam gear fiasco, but 2 strikes against Impy on this one, putting the chamfer on the wrong side, or these marks on the wrong side, however you want to look at it. And then just unacceptable amount of lash on this thing. Pretty annoying and cost me a lot of time, so not happy. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. So appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much as always, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.